I'm going to show a quick no frills method for getting a fluid simulation animation from Blender into Thea Studio for final rendering. I've already got the plugin installed. It's pretty easy, and that gives you a Thea render option up here in the render engines. So the first thing to do is select the Thea renderer, and then automatically in the world enable the Thea physical sky. I'm not sure why that's necessary, and it may not be, but that's what the instructions say, and things work if you do that, so I'm going to leave it like that for now. Then in the render settings, this menu here now is customized a bit toward Thea because we pulled that down. You got to select a existing subdirectory for the output, and it has to have no spaces in the file names. So I've already got one here. And if you do type it in yourself and you know it exists, put a trailing slash, backslash after the thing. Alright, and then save the scene. Call it A1. Okay, so we've kind of done the initial critical bits to get things to work, and then there are some other things later. So we've got the default cube, and go ahead and make that the fluid. Add another cube, scale it up. That's going to be the domain. Go to wireframe mode so you can see what's going on. And fluid, that's the domain. While I'm here, just to kind of speed everything up, I'm going to put the resolutions down to 20 for both the final. You're going to want a lot higher than 20. And I'm going to just make the animation 10 frames long, just so things kind of go quickly. And that's pretty good there. I'll go ahead and save the scene again. Now, the domain needs to have a material on it to show up in Thea. So you can, right now, you can assign any kind of material. I'm just going to assign a red diffuse color to it. And there are options in here that you can link this with the Thea material system, but I haven't figured those out, and this seems to work pretty well. So I'm going to do it this way for this particular tutorial. And then I think we're ready to bake this. So select the domain, come over here and bake it. Alright, I'm going to pause this while it bakes. Okay, it's baked, and it's pretty rubbish simulation, but you can tell it's a fluid and it is moving around. So I'm going to frame 1, and we can start the export now. So there's a couple settings on here that we need to be careful with. I'll go ahead and change this down to 25% just so I don't end up with huge renders and render time, even though it's pretty quick. So the first thing to do is come down into Thea Setup, and under Presets, select None, because we're going to set the render type, the render parameters inside of the Thea Studio, because this is an export process. We're going to export this. We're not going to render it from within Blender, but we're going to do it by exporting. And then on Models, you've got to go Name Collision, Replace Mesh, because this mesh is changing for every frame. And if you don't select this, it just uses the mesh from the very first frame, and you don't end up with any animation whatsoever. So that's the first thing. That's got to be set down here. Then up at the top, you've got to hit this button, Enable Mesh Animation. That way it will look at any changed meshes for every frame. Otherwise, again, you would just end up with some static mesh and nothing changes for all the frames. So there's no indication that you've pressed this, so if in doubt, just press it again. And right, so we can export, hide the fluid cube, otherwise the thing will show up in your renders. So we don't need that right now because it's been baked. And we're good. So now I'm going to save it. Go ahead and hit this export animation button. It's very quick. It's done it. It's written some XML files for every frame off into your hard drive to that output directory. And now to get over to Thea, you're going to check this button, Start Thea After Export. We're going to be on frame 1 of the animation, and then we're going to say Export Current Frame. So first frame is being exported into Thea, and there it is, and that's the red material. I should have set my camera up a little bit better, but now I'm going to select that and give this thing a water material. It's got a water material. So this is the first frame. I'm setting up things. I'm going to set up the render engine. It's going to use Presto MC, and just so it doesn't take forever, I'm going to set the samples quite low, down to like 20. And so that's good. And then if I wanted, I would make some test renders. I might change f-stops, exposures, things like that. I might merge in, bring in different elements of the scene, but I'm just going to go ahead and render this now. So the first frame is in here. Now you call in this, open up the camera.ipt.thea file that was created when we did the export, and open that, and here it is. It says it's got 10 frames to do, and it should be ready to go. So ideally I should have switched over to darkroom before I read that in, because it won't let me do it now, and I think you can track the progress a little bit easier. But let's give it a go. So you can see it's rendering job. It's pretty quick, surprisingly quick really, but it's very simple scene and very low resolution. And that's it. Now if we go over and look into this directory, okay, I gotta pause it while I find out what happened. Okay, I'm not going to try to figure out why, but it has put the PNG files that Thea just generated into that subdirectory that I named as the output, but down under the export, and it created a subdirectory called frames where it had stored those XML files, and that's where it happened to put the images. So if we look at these images, you can see that I just played them through. Those are the 10 images, and it looks kind of like a fluid. And that's all there is to it. Now you'd have to bring that into some sort of a program that would combine the stills into a movie strip. And so that's about all there is to it. It's just these tricks about hitting the enable the mesh animation, setting in Thea setup the merge, name, collision, replace mesh, and then the exporting that current frame. So I hope that helps.